installation of my YouTube discussions. So, today we are going to be talking about a very, very large alignment. It's been having an influence over all of us for the past week, and it'll continue having an influence over all of us for the next week. And the thing about these kinds of alignments is when there's a very powerful influence going on, whether or not you believe in it, whether or not you want it to, it exerts a pressure on us. And having this kind of information allows you to respond to those pressures, sometimes obstacles, sometimes challenges, in ways that make the outcome less painful. Or, the outcome may even be turned into something positive if you didn't have the information. Now, as you know, I am probably the person who looks at the stars the most, who talks about Thereus. And and unsurprisingly, I'm very sensitive to that energy, which is why I talk about it. I actually had the Thereus hit a couple of days ago because I got into a minor accident. Now, I'm relatively okay, but it was a minor accident. And I was at the laundry and I just felt watched the whole time. And I was like, okay, something doesn't feel right. But okay, I'm at the laundry, I'm just doing my thing. And a lady comes along, says, here, why don't you use this cart? I'm like, I usually don't, but I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And in a split second, so I'm walking back, but this cart is attached to the ground by some very lightweight plastic chains. And I don't see where I'm going because I'm headed back to the car. The girls are waiting in the car with my brother. And so I just walk back. I don't even think about it twice. And I go flying. So my feet, like, it's not like a simple, oh, I slipped, but my feet just go flying straight up. So I'm literally horizontal over the ground. And I literally had about a second to scream because that's how high up I went, just slipping. So naturally, I hit the ground pretty hard. A friend of mine said it could have been a lot worse. And I was like, yeah, I could have hit my head really hard. So I ended up hitting my knees really hard. And, been in a fair amount of pain. But, Thereus, unsurprising. I wasn't even thinking about it. And when I went back and I looked at the sky charts, I'm like, oh, okay, it's opposed the moon right now. So in a fair bit of pain, I was actually supposed to do a session, and I was just like, can't, nope, nope. But it really could have been very, very risky because if it had been my noggin, it would have been a lot worse. But then I remember the last time I had, in fact, it's funny because the night before I had a very successful first meeting of the Tier 23 monthly meditations. And people had incredible results. You had people who literally have issues with detached and severed nerves here. And literally, they actually had an experience where they started regrowing it. They said it was painful, but they could literally feel the connections coming back. People having long periods of anxiety suddenly had very, very instant shifts. It was quite amazing. So the results were fantastic from that. But I knew the second I started working with energy, the risk on me would be a lot higher. I was like, okay, but I didn't think too much about it because if you live in fear, you can't do jack shit. So I went about, and this happened just as the moon was exactly opposing Thereus. I'm like, okay, that's probably going to be the biggest hit. And I remembered something that I had said the previous night before to the meditation group. I said, look, when Thereus comes, just, go with it and bounce back. Don't try to resist it. Don't try to get really, really hard about it because, that's the kind of energy that will make you take a lot more damage. So I had the time to scream. That's how high my feet kicked up. As I was falling down to the ground, I just turned my body to jelly. And that literally minimized the impact. So that probably saved me because I took my own advice. And I remembered the last time something like this happened, it was during that very bizarre car accident that I had that could have sent me plunging off a cliff in New Mexico. So I looked up the dates today. I was thinking something about this feels very, very similar. Even my body is responding to it very similarly. And of course, it was a major activation of Thereus in my chart, along with Mars, as it is right now. A lot of things happening around the galactic center, as it is right now. And I was like, oh, okay, no wonder this is so familiar. So for me, Thereus primarily takes a very physical manifestation, like she gonna die type manifestation. So, and then there are other smaller things that happened. There was literally someone who wrote to me complaining that I was bitching about them on my videos and how I shouldn't use them as the case study for Thereus. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But very weirdly obsessed people just coming up and trying to get a piece of my energy and headspace. And I'm just like, no, no, thank you. Minor types of concerns like that, but primarily, uh, it was really the physical thing. And so that's why I'm taking a bit of space for myself, canceled all slots, said, no, I need the time to push through this. But for me at least, when I have a job to do, when there is something that absolutely must be said, even if I am like in extreme pain, I'm going to be like, I got to get up to do this. That is the Capricorn in me. So I made sure I got enough rest to get up and do this, and I was energetically sound to do so. So that was how Thereus has been. And like I said, it's going to hit people differently in different ways. For me, it tends to be very dramatic and very physical. But effectively, just as a recap, Thereus's energy is very much about fear, covert predation, sudden strikes, sudden attacks, sudden influences of something that was hidden, and that actually then ends up being something that causes damage or harm in a particular way. You see it very much at play, when you're dealing with stalkers, when you're dealing with you know, incidents and accidents that really have no business happening in the first place. I've seen this at play looking at global events over and over again. I'm collecting a lot of material for my book. And yeah, so it's very unsurprising to me. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is Thereus trining the Galactic Center, which goes exact tomorrow, July the 2nd. The exact time of the alignment will be 21:51 Universal Time. Thereus trines the Galactic Center. Now, this is a very profound alignment. Thereus will test our response to fear. It will test our response to disassociation, and baby does not like this topic. So give me a second, because I got my eye on her. Give me a sec. Yes, 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 you can go sit down over there. All right. Oof. In fact, we had a bit of scare with her as well. All of a sudden, her eyes started bleeding. Oh my God. And we had to go and run to the vet and all that fun kind of stuff. But she's okay. But effectively, Thereus tests our response. It tests our response to see whether or not we can keep our heart centered consciousness in the face of events that will try to push us out of that space, especially Thereus and Leo. Now, I appreciate the thoughts, but nobody send me energy because I have enough walls up that it will fire back at you. Appreciate it, but no thank you. I have healers doing the work. And in times of high intensity of Thereus, do not go and send energy unless you are asked to, because it's a risk for you and it's a risk for the person you are sending it to. Just don't. I appreciate the thought, but do not do it. It actually brings me to a point where that I wanted to talk about a little bit further in the discussion. You need to be very, very careful with whatever energies you work with at this time. Doesn't matter if you're a facilitator, doesn't matter if you're a client, doesn't matter if you have the best intention in the world. There are many things in the skies right now that are trying to take the purest, sweetest things and twist them. I mean, so just be very aware. Appreciate the intent, but it's okay. It's cool. I'm dealing with it. Now, the energy of Thereus, when it tries to push you out of that heart space, can do so in several ways. Like when you're feeling very shocked, very disconnected from yourself, it's almost like there's a little bit of a gap between the emotional body and the other subtle bodies. And it takes a bit of a fab. It was one of the things I covered in the meditation in Tier 23. It was how to realign those bodies. And basically it is about making sure you come back almost to that centrality of what you experience as presence in yourself. So sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's shock, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's the feeling of abandonment, betrayal, sometimes it's literally the ego throwing such a hard tantrum you don't know what to do. Now, Thereus can occur in many ways, and of course, nobody likes to admit that they may have Thereus like qualities, but let's face it, abuse, predation, stalking exists because there are people who do it. So, as someone who has seen multiple manifestations of this over the years, what I can say is I think it's good to have a discussion on both sides because everyone's on a journey. Sometimes you do things in ways that actually end up hurting, draining, or harming another person without you even realizing it. And because Thereus is in Leo, the focus tends to be in matters of the heart, matters of that vital sense of spark, vital sense of life. A lot of the time, Thereus is associated with obsession. And there's a lot of obsessed people out there right now who are really getting triggered left, right, and center. So if you are playing the role of Thereus in someone's life, and if you are seeing that, Thelma wants to know, how does one even know if you have Thereus in one's chart? Everyone's got a Thereus somewhere, honey. Everybody. Everyone's got a Mars, a Venus, a Jupiter, a Neptune, and a Thereus. You can look it up at astro.com 32532. Anyway, so basically, as I was saying, this is an energy where when a person actually ends up playing the role of the predator, and I don't like putting things to extremes, like saying someone's a parasite or someone's a predator or someone's a leech and to dehumanize it. But sometimes people go so far that in their journeys that their humanity has been subsumed by that role. And the other person on the other side, unfortunately, has to deal with it. But when you are dealing with that kind of situation where there's such an intensity of obsession, if you work with prayer, if you work at shifting things at the energetic level, you need to be you need to be at that space where the first thing that needs to go is an obsession. And honestly, this is the kind of energy where allowing people to detach is one of the most key elements of dealing with Thereus and Leo. Like even in a physical sense, if I were very, very attached to that moment of just free falling, and I'm not a skinny woman, if I hit the ground hard, it hurts. So, even if I was very attached at that moment and I had clenched up, I would have been very injured, possibly in hospital. But this is what I did now, and this is what I did a couple of years back when I had that accident, which is why I'm here. It's about, in that moment, allowing the flow to move so that this cord, this link, this experience can actually begin to dissolve. And so, dealing with Thereus is about that dissolution. Because if you think about it, Thereus is very much that stalker who hunts bears, right? So this guy is looking at this bear cave and he's doing nothing else really except looking at this bear cave. Imagine how much obsession that dude has. So one of the things that you can do is you can also try and shift, if you're working with a facilitator or if you're a facilitator yourself, appeal to what you understand as a higher power for that very frequency of obsession to shift. And unfortunately, because Thereus is doing all of this from Leo, you see this big confluence between obsession and love. And this is where you got to be very careful. I mean, I've seen this come up from multiple people. There's a very weird confluence between people who claim an entitlement to another person's time and energy because they claim that is love. And that's sick. It really is sick. But you can't be going there volunteering yourself as the sacrifice because that doesn't heal anybody to begin with. And it also makes your life resources much more drained. I've seen this happen quite a bit, actually. And it's so important to be able to draw that line between obsession and love. But that is more for the emotional, psychic manifestation of Thereus. So, one of the important things that you also need to remember is because this is happening in Leo, you also need to look at how is it affecting those whom you have very close to your heart, whether it's your kids, whether it's your partner, whether it's your creative collaborator. How are these people around you being affected? So, it's very important to look at the hearts of the ones whom you love. Is your use of the term love actually control? Are you trying to limit another person's life force because you think you're giving the most wonderful thing in the world that they possibly can ever receive? These are questions to ask. And sometimes a person may not even know that they're playing that role. So you got to ask those questions. So and this is a time, and this is a very important time to be asking those questions and becoming very honest about the answers because of Thereus's connection to the galactic center. So the Galactic Center for me, and I know a lot of you found me because I was talking to another very famous astrologer about the Galactic Center, and at the time Saturn was on top of it. This was right before my accident. I think it was that year. And I was talking to her about the Galactic Center. I was talking to her about what it meant. Long story short, the Galactic Center is a space where, for me, the way I understand it, and I've observed it in operation through clients' charts, through energy, and so on and so forth, the way I understand it is that it is a space where a lot of karmic contracts are held. And a lot of things that we call guides, gurus, teachers, gods, things of an older frequency tend to pull the yoke from the galactic center. That's why when people try to romanticize it, I know that they are not seeing it for what it is. So this is the kind of energy where when you've got Thereus trying the galactic center, where your responses to Thereus will actually reflect a much larger relationship with your responses to reality and the way you navigate your karmic contract or karmic frameworks through this reality. Are you going to give in to fear? Are you going to be a martyr? Are you going to be honest with yourself and ask yourself how you may be stalking, obsessing, and eating into another person's happiness and well being for your own selfishness? So, these are very powerful questions to be asking. At the end of the day, no one is perfect. Everybody is human. Everyone is on an experience, and hopefully, the people in my space try their best. But know that there is also a lot of illusion that's happening at the same time because Boracity, the energy that I associate with the false light, is also aspecting the galactic center, which is why this very weird conflation between obsession and love is getting intensified a lot more, very, very powerfully. It's not going to be true for everybody, but for some of you, I would say some of us, seeing these patterns at play, it certainly does have an application. So over the next couple of days, be aware, if there's something physical in your environment that maybe you haven't taken care of, but you really should have a long time ago, whether it's a loose electrical wire, whether it's uneven paving, go and get that done. If your kids keep saying they can't sleep, if your fur babies keep screaming and have a little wound they keep scratching at, whatever it is, get it checked out. This may also be a time for people who have heart issues or reproductive issues to really need to seek some kind of medical intervention or medical help because it's another way that it can manifest. Either way, it is a time for all of us to look at this as an opportunity to come back to the truth of ourselves. What is the truth of yourself? How does your heart express love? Is it truly love or is it something else? At the end of the day, if your definition of love comes with the need to control another person, with the need to put that person in some kind of pedestal or some kind of way where you expect them to behave in a certain way, that ain't love. That's something else. And unfortunately, Thereus is also bringing a lot of this out into the collective. And like I said, it's an experience. Everyone is going through it at the same time. But one of the most important things that I could say that all of us could do, irrespective of whether or not one sees themselves as the victim or one sees themselves as the abuser or both or whatever, one of the things that we can do is to learn the value of detachment. Now, detachment does not mean that you do not love. Detachment does not mean that you do not have emotions. Detachment means that you have your emotion, you have your experience, but you are not attaching it to a particular expectation or outcome. That is detachment. And that is why the language of unconditional love has been so co-opted that people are unable to tell the difference between the two. So effectively, at this time, it is important for us to look at what experience we are having and to look at the truth of that experience. Detachment, surrender, faith. All of these things ultimately will point us to a greater path of truth. But, and here's the big but, you have to be willing to see it. If you're not willing to see the truth, everything, everything that challenges you to see it will seem like an obstacle, will seem like a monster, will seem evil, will seem painful, blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, to quote unquote defeat Thereus the hunter, you have to be willing to see the truth of it. Are you playing that role? Are you allowing at some level that role to be played? And where do you need to step back with presence back into yourself to reclaim that power? And reclaiming your power doesn't necessarily mean that the other person has to be worse off. It means that you are occupying your space more fully. And unless a person's definition of, strength depends on your weakness, at which point they have a huge issue, you stepping into you should not actually be a problem or a bother for anyone. This is a time where we must face the most painful truths that we feel that our hearts will not be able to accept. And this is where that test of faith and that test of surrender comes in. When you truly open yourself to the divine, you will be willing to see whatever that truth is. You will be willing to believe that you will have the support you need to get through whatever that may be. And for those of you who are facing this in questions or matters of the heart, oh, that is a painful thing. But at the same time, and this is a question my brother asked me a long time ago, and it's one of those questions I always ask myself to make sure that I am, at the very least, doing my best to stay on track. You want truth or you want comfort? And I've always chosen truth. But that is the situation, that is the attitude you need to take with respect to whatever Thereus is doing in your life. You know? So having said that, that's what I wanted to tell all of you about. That's the energy that is very much present over the next week, especially the next few days. So be aware of your environment, of your situation, of your surroundings. Be willing to see the truth of what is, not what you want to be, not, going into fantasy, not going into delusion. Be willing to see the truth as it is, even if it hurts, because that will be when and how you understand what you need to do with respect to Thereus. So we are not doing a hello neighbor today, but I do say hello to all of you. I just want to see if there's anything very important that I need to answer here. VB wants to know, what does one do when you do not have anyone now to share life's experience with, not even a friend? Honestly, my friends are all online. And even if it's a few minutes a day, we try to make time for each other. That might be an option for you. But I can't say more to that. Clarissa Jones says, I felt so down over the past week or two. What is going on? This is what's going on. Let's see. Okay. Lex says, hello from Neon Lebula. Big hugs, big hugs. All right. I would say that is about it. Crystalline Crow says, yes, exactly. This always bothered me in Avatar The Last Airbender. The question of detachment and love. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, Charles, one of my favorite people. Addressing my codependent tendencies, and I feel like I'm being mean even though I'm not. Charles, you and me. You and me have the same problem. But, effectively, sometimes you have to feel that way because, and even that feeling of discomfort in setting your boundaries, in saying no to negative energies or parasitic energies, whether it's in yourself or whether it's in another person, sometimes it does feel mean. Sometimes it's gonna feel harsh. Sometimes it's gonna feel bitter. Sometimes you're gonna feel like, oh my God, for some people, because they're so used to being fed off, it might actually be easier for them to allow that to continue happening than the opposite. So, what you're feeling, Charles, is totally normal and it's totally cool. And I know you. You are not mean. You are totally not mean. Okay. Nanton Hill Morgans, hello to you and hello to Pirate Cat. Just learned the new moon will be 18 degrees of Cancer, exactly conjunct my natal moon. Okay, that should be interesting. Mm-mm-mm. Chiron, another lovely person. I'm going through that too right now. Chiron's homework was to watch My Hero Academia. I think he's enjoying it. Charles says, "Oh my God, don't hit me." No, why would I? But yeah, just remember, it's not a bad thing to feel uncomfortable with setting boundaries, especially when you have not been allowed to set it before. People who have been used to your energy, people who have been used to taking your energy for granted, will not like having their food source getting cut off. So, of course, they're going to call you mean. Of course, they're going to say you're nasty or hard or whatever because they are losing. The only thing you can do in that situation is to redirect them to themselves, to spirit, so that they can find their own source. We live in a universe of limitlessness. And that's why none of us really need to get drained for the betterment of another person. But Thereus in Leo, of course, used that exact logic. It uses that exact logic to try and hook people. If you don't let the hunter stalker in, you're not loving enough. Bull fucking shit. That is not true. If you love your home and you love your family and you love yourself, you do not need to let in anything negative. You can say, okay, well, there's some help that you can get from whichever space you can. If you need some resources to get started, here you go. If you can, or not, just say, I'm sorry, I can't. And that's perfectly fine. Christine says they use fear, obligation, and guilt to control. Bingo, bingo, bingo. So if you find yourself in that kind of a situation with anyone, this is what you got to be aware of. So, remember, it's not easy to do, especially when it's someone with whom you have an emotional connection or an emotional attachment or even an emotional vulnerability to for some reason. Um, I mean, I don't really want to talk about it too much, but what I will say about that weird email I got was that I got accused of being a racist to someone of my own ethnic group because I said no. And I was thinking to myself, really? Am I mean? Do I do this? And I thought about it and I went, nope, I am the same to just about everyone. Kind, ridiculously kind up to a point with ground rules. And if that person keeps, pulling me or trying to push me or trying to take something that's not theirs, they will get the boot. But after, repeated attempts to slowly, gently show them the way. But no, I really had to sit and look at myself so deeply because that idea triggered me so much as someone who has fought against racist discrimination of people who look more like me, shall we say. Well, discrimination of anyone, but it started from that personal experience. I can tell you that that really scared me. And so I had to sit with it, think about it, and I just went, hey, no, this is a control tactic. This isn't even real. It's not even true. So, yeah, that's how manipulative Thereus can be. But yeah, so look at whoever is exerting control in your life, whether it's in a subtle way or whether it's in a flat out oppressive way, or whether it's just random shit energies that try to beat you up. Whatever it is, be aware and know that you have the right to be loving and to be kind to yourself. Anyone who tells you that you don't have the right to protect your energy doesn't really need access to it. Alrighty? So I would say that is about it. That is probably as much as I can say on this topic. Just know that even if people come with the word love, like I said, I've seen that happen multiple times. Very often, that's just a code for control. Very, very often. BB says, I feel with the pandemic still ongoing, it'll change the way people deal with each other in every environment. I agree, absolutely. On a fun note, on a fun note, I was looking because I couldn't do much. In fact, I'm sitting up after lying down the whole day because I was in so much of pain from my accident. I couldn't even sit up. This is me basically on meditation. And I was looking at it and I saw people have been really getting into cooking and arts and crafts. And the next stage has begun. They've begun to use cats to cook. There's literally a cat cook on Instagram. That's interesting. But yes, I agree with you, VB, on a more serious note. Um, it's a kind of energy that people are really being forced to be a lot more selective and a lot more aware. And I keep seeing posts about how it's okay to say that you're not doing okay. So people are getting more and more aware of being more authentic. It's coming through the language of pain, but often, unfortunately, this is still true. Pain is still the best teacher. Not everyone learns from it, though. Some people just get stuck in the cycle. But yeah, people are changing. People are really starting to look at what is real and what is not. And for me, the biggest thing is to just show up with the reality of who you are and what you are. The people who love you are going to love you, and the people who are not going to love you will not. And some people will literally say they love you, but they don't. So actually finding love that is real, that is healthy, and that is without strings, that is the challenge. But as long as you are you, and as long as you are willing to say no to the bullshit, you will have a better chance of actually finding something that's worthwhile. But for you, VB, I would say, given where you are, given your situation, it maybe you can start doing stuff like, working with some online groups or something like that. That might be something that could get you a bit more social interaction. Because with all of this change, people are getting more focused and they are getting more honest. I remember talking about this stuff years ago and having such a big backlash because people were not willing to hear it. They were not able to, they were not able to comprehend. But now, well, they are, because everyone is feeling it. Certain spiritualists like myself tend to just get it a couple of years ahead. And we're like, why? But that is still part of the job right now. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the well wishes. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. Kitty is also okay. And my bro is fine. So that's a blessing. Though I did treat myself today to a chocolate chip muffin, and that did make me feel better. So, because I don't do painkillers, even if I'm in extreme pain, I do not do painkillers. It's just the way I do it. I remember once, when I was in England, I had to be admitted to hospital. It was terrible, horrible pain of the intestines, and they gave me morphine, but they gave me the maximum dose because I was in so much pain, and I could feel my energy leave my body. And at the split second, my energy was just like, "Get back in. You're not going anywhere." I was never a big fan of painkillers even before then, but especially after that, nope, nope, no way. So I basically tend to self-medicate with meditation, cats, and chocolate. Ooh, Audrey Kitsteiner says, it's interesting you mentioned learning through pain. I've been numb from the waist down. Ooh, for the last month, on top of my fibromyalgia. I feel it's time to move forward, releasing old energy. Ooh, have you been to a Cairo? Very often, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I've had something like that. Um, I find that a lot of it has to do with nervous compression. Did they say anything like that? Chiron says, I missed the part about the accident. I hope you feel better soon. I hope so. I hope so. Okay, Audrey's doing acupuncture. That's very good. Excellent. Thumbs up. I'm going to have to get the energy to work on myself. But for now, it's chocolate and cats and chocolate. Well, not that much, but let's see. Queen Luna says, I'm learning to keep things to myself unless they're meant to hear it. I love that you give the information regardless of backlash. I admire and love how direct you are. I tried. I really did try. I have tried to be, oh, love and light. Everything is nice. It doesn't work for me. But I have Saturn conjunct the great attractor. So I don't, that doesn't work for me. But I respect for those whom that is a possibility. So enjoy it if you can. Pamela says chocolate cats meditation. That's a mug. Oh. Mackie says doing Reiki over here and love how I feel. Very good. Um, let's see. Michi says sounds good and relaxing cats and chocolate. Yes, I'm working on a new song for my cat project. That's going well. Well, when I can work, I generally just have to lie down and go, oh my God, I can't get up. So, I am working on a new song. It sounds pretty cool. So I'm happy about that. Jolene says acupuncture help when my back went out after my first Reiki session. Excellent. Renate says hello everyone and Dr. B. Hello. But Renate, I am just about to go. Yeah, so a quick recap, all about the heart, all about truth, all about being aware. Thereus is doing a thing with the collective. It's been doing this for the past week at least. It's going to be very strong in the skies tomorrow. Samantha brings up an excellent point. I find Thereus sometimes comes disguised as someone offering help. That is exactly what happened to me. It was help I didn't need that got me into that accident. So, even to come to think of it, even the one that I had that was nearly life threatening, same thing, same thing. Suzanne sends me chocolate bars with stars. That is nice. So, having said all of that, please, if you just joined the call, go back to the very beginning. We've got a lot of material to cover. I send all of your love. I send all of your blessings. Do not waste your time thinking about how shit Thereus is. Do not waste your anger. Do not waste your emotions. Do not, um, what's the word? Do not feel sorry for it. Just do what you need to do and go, 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 go. And do not do any kind of energetic work unless you are very, very clear with what you're doing and who you're doing it on. Okay? So you take care. Lots of love. Very many blessings to everyone. And as always, cha cha for now. Bye bye.